like the Order Paper podcast, hit like, tap subscribe. And if you really want to back more content, drop a super thanks or become a member.
Okay, I'll do exactly that then. I guess the key point I want to make clear is the main reason for going through this process, which is extraordinarily unusual, was simply because we had to provide the industry with certainty, a transition period. Further transition was needed, which was not allowed under the Act. And so by going through this parliamentary route, it gives us the ability to provide that transition period because these are major costs that the sector will need to bear, and it's not going to be an easy job for many of them to make these changes to their infrastructure. Hence why we need to give them, especially for the grower space, that's probably the main one, and that's why it's so important that we give them this transition period so they can make those adjustments to buildings. I'll leave it at that. That's, I guess, the key point I want to raise.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Frank. So very, very, very succinct. Steve Abel and Joe, launch into questions. We only have said Minister for 10 minutes, so use your time as best as you can.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, I've got a couple of questions if I can get them in.
Yes, please.
Why have you left it so late, Minister, given this deadline has been looming for 5 years? The deadline of 18th of December was well known to you when you came into the job. So why did you leave it till this very 11th hour to rush through a change?
So basically last year was going through the discussions with the pork industry in terms of what would work and getting advice from officials. And then this year has pretty much been working through how this progresses forward. And there was, didn't want to have to go through this route, would have much preferred to do it a much more simpler and normal way, but these were the only option, and once we exhausted all other options, this was the only option left, so this is the route that we've taken. Would have loved to, I made my mind up reasonably quickly once with that consultation had happened. The rest of it's been the paperwork and drafting and all the rest of it.
Pause it there. That is really bad, what he just said there. I made my mind up after the consultation was done. Yeah, who did he consult? He consulted with pig farmers. Why didn't he consult?
Were you consulted? Were you consulted when you were the president of Federated Farmers, or you consulted that now that you're a minister in government?
Yeah, no, he had a nice chat with NZ Pork, right? Because I'm reading through the RIS, the Regulatory Impact Statement. But he didn't consult with the SPCA or the Veterinary Council of New Zealand, right? You think those would be two important agencies to consult?
Oh, not I disagree with you.
Yeah, no, I just spoke to a bunch of pig farmers and, I made up my mind. It's like, no, you got to consult people who treat animals for a living and who deal with behavioural things in animals.
I wonder, he consulted veterinary coalitions at Massey University?
No, he didn't consult any universities. It's just like New Zealand Pork. I don't know shit about New Zealand Pork. I don't know if he sat down and spoke to veterinarians that work for New Zealand Pork. I don't know if there were farmers that disagreed with him and said, yep, we actually want improvements here, but they were ignored. Like, I kind of need a bit more detail than that.
Yeah. You're kind of like, what happened?
And why can't we have manipulable material legalized now? Like, for example, what is stopping farmers from going, yep, we're going to give pigs straw? Like, why do we need a transition period for that?
Have we had one? Is this like literally trying to basically stall the whole panel? I don't know.
But it's transition period up to December 2035. Why do we need to wait till December 2035 to give pigs straw?
Yeah.
What the fuck? We grow straw here in New Zealand.
Yeah, I know.
Importing it from overseas. What are we doing?
Yeah. So let's continue.
My sup on that, Mr. Chair.
Yes, of course.
So, I thought I'm sure that clarifies why this process that we've gone through at the Select Committee couldn't have happened, sooner. But on the point of the consultation, you've repeatedly said that you did consult with the animal welfare sector in the last year of consultation, but they are very clear that they haven't been consulted with.
No, I've never said that. I've been consulted with, not by. So, they had the opportunity through the NAWAC process, and their points were very clear.
In 2022,
NAWAC process and those submissions. So it was pretty obvious where they stood. And yeah.
Just to be clear, you mean in the 2022 consultation?
Yeah, and obviously as that process went through, yeah.
So it's correct to say that in this latest proposal that you've worked closely with the pork industry on, you hadn't included...
Primarily, I've worked very closely with the MPI staff in terms of their advice, and they've been the ones doing the consultation with New Zealand Pork to find out what will work to provide a sustainable pathway for the New Zealand pork industry.
I've got one final quick question, if that's all right, Mr. Chair. How is it that even after these changes are brought into place in 10 years' time, that they will meet our animal welfare standards? A number of people, submitters, have made the point that, in fact, increasing the cage by a certain size still will not meet the bar of our Animal Welfare Act. So what advice do you have that it will do that?
Well, I mean, this is another reason why we're going through this process, is because it's important that we actually balance up
because
the welfare
he
of the
didn't
piglets.
consult
The science
with the
shows
veterinarian council.
that you have a 14% greater mortality risk, and so I'm looking at balancing not just focus solely on the sow's welfare, but also the piglets' welfare, and that's what farming's all about. It's trying to find that balance to come to the ideal outcome.
Thank you, Steve Abel and Minister. Joe, you've got a question?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for your time this afternoon, Minister. My question for you is, what, if anything, has changed or had changed in the sector, and the advice that would have been put before you when you first became the Minister, which is the same advice that was put before me when I was Minister, with several options, but quite close to an election, so it wasn't fair to make a decision that would mean that as incoming Minister you would have to adhere to that. What advice changed that has meant that you have this process has taken that much longer, and you sought to kind of, I guess, re-go through that whole process? And again, might have been similar to what Steve asked, is why was SPCA left out of this round? You said that they participated in the 2022 round. Why were they left out of this round since you went through that process again?
In terms of I'm not sure whether or not you would have had all the economic advice in front of you at the time. For me, that was, I was looking at 3 different scenarios with some really, really hefty costs for an industry. And at the forefront of my mind was, Jesus, will this industry be able to survive these costs? And so I wanted to make sure that we had ensure that we came out with a solution that would be sustainable for this industry. The risk is that even the costs we're proposing may be far too much for some. And so the key thing for me was, it's such a small industry, if we lose potentially half or a third of this industry, does it even have the critical mass to carry on in terms of slaughter space? So look, a big part of my thinking was we really needed to tease that out and make sure we had all the best information. The advice from MPI was let us go and talk to the industry and see if they could there was the NAWAC position, the MPI position, and the pork position. They wanted to try and get themselves, both MPI and Pork New Zealand, on the same page, and so that was what they went off and did. And sorry, what was your last question?
The not involving SPCA this time.
Look, I've met with them 6 times. They could have, if they wanted to raise the issue, they could have. They did it at the last meeting where I said, yep, well, I'm aware of the date and we will be improving the welfare. Obviously, it was in front of Cabinet, so I couldn't really go into any more detail at that time.
Would you accept, though, Minister, that you consulted with the pork industry itself proactively, but this was somewhat, SPCA was somewhat blindsided by this, and it wasn't, you didn't seek to engage with them specifically on this topic. It was only when they came to you, being aware that the date in December was looming. And so it would seem as if they've been completely shut out almost on purpose. And just finally, very quickly, sorry, Mr. Chair.
2 minutes left here. Thank
why
you.
10 years when it's been said that 5 years would be sufficient and appropriate for these this time to be the time frame?
Okay, so in terms of why consult very closely with the pork sector, because they're the ones impacted. They're the ones that are going to be paying somewhere between, the potential costs were $1.6 million per farm to $600,000 per farm. Those are the people that are going to be potentially put out of business or have to wear a massive cost and completely turn their businesses upside down. And come up with solutions that will work. So that was why I focused on them, because it was going to hit them the hardest. And in terms of why 10 years, well, a great example would be the business I just visited an hour ago, where they've been waiting 7 years for a consent. These changes are going to be big changes, and they're going to need new consents, and we have an absolute mess of a system at the moment where people are struggling to get consents. So a big part of it was we need to get these RMA changes enacted and in place so that people will be able to progress through the system. What that $600,000 cost is for the infrastructure. We're seeing farmers, particularly here in Canterbury, paying $50,000 for a simple consent renewal, up to $200,000 if ECAM want to make it difficult. Now, undoubtedly, a pig farm, it's quite a complex issue. You could add on another couple of $100,000 on terms of costs if we push them to try and do it all through the current system. So part of it was, let's have the new system in place, particularly for that, and it's mainly that grower space, because that is going to be major works to rebuild sheds. I think the other things can probably be done faster and quicker, but that grower space definitely needed, or the weaner space, sorry, definitely needed that 10 years, in my opinion.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
time for another quick one.
Oh, sorry, we were very succinctly, Steve Abel. We've met time, but if you can ask a question, and I'm sure the Minister will be succinct. Our 10 minutes is up.
I think the concern is, Minister, that you are the one member of the government who is responsible for animal welfare, and you've prioritised consulting with the pork industry over independent animal welfare organisations and experts in regard to an issue that is to do with meeting the animal welfare needs of farmed mother pigs and piglets, and you have not prioritised animal welfare, is the perception.
Well, I would disagree in the fact that we've had good scientific evidence that's informed this decision that does show that you will have piglet losses quite substantial, and so this is part of the change of ensuring that we get that balance between welfare. We're improving the welfare outcomes. Let's be clear, none of the countries we import pork from will be anywhere near our level of welfare. So we will have leading welfare. Yes, there's a couple of Scandinavian countries that are highly subsidised that will have slightly more generous terms, but these will be world-leading animal welfare outcomes for our pig sector, but hopefully they will still be affordable for our pig farmers to ensure we still do have a pig industry.
Thank you, Minister. We have met time, gentlemen and ladies online. Thank you, Minister, for your time. Time is very precious.
Can you put up a picture of what a farrowing crate looks like for the people that are watching this? Because we're talking about an animal, folks, that's about as intelligent as a 3-year-old child, right? And this is what we're considering to be okay to put a mother pig in when there are other viable options on the table. Like, how fucking badly do you need your bacon? Look, they can't move.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't get up and stretch. They can't turn around. Would you keep your dog like that?
Were the pigs treated better on Babe, on the movie Babe?
Yes. Look how squashed together they are. They've got no straw.
Is this what they're meant to be?
That's a lot better, but I mean, shit. I would be a lot more happier with that.
I'd rather have them outside in nature.
Is that I reckon if you poll most Kiwis, right, and you go, okay, this is how much bacon costs. This is how intelligent a pig is. This is what they're living in. I think most people would go, yeah, I'm okay with paying a little bit extra to get a pig that's outside. I'm not that desperate for fucking bacon.
Far out. That's just fucking horrible.
Like, yeah, I mean, I in Carterton, I remember there was like a big factory. I'm going to call them a factory because it's not a farm. Look at how the animals been kept. I'm calling it a damn factory.
Well, I mean, I knew there was one that was not far in between Shannon and Foxton.
Yeah.
And
did you hear about the one that happened in Carterton though? That got set on fire and the pigs couldn't escape.
No, I didn't know about that, but far out. That's just the visualization of what you just said just sounds absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, I mean, Carterton farm fire. I remember hearing about that. Absolutely horrific, and people were like saying, "Yeah, we heard the pigs screaming."
Yeah. Oh, heck.
Because they can't escape. They're stuck in the crates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, let's hear more.
Yep, so they have it in Waikato as well.
Yeah. This submission is from Animal.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube. YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, The Order, Paper Podcast.